Hi, good afternoon, class. Can you see the whiteboard?
Yes po, sir.
Okay. All right, so we're going to discuss, we are now on the third part of the exam, no? So this topic will cover the third long exam, no? Which is reactions of electrophiles, okay? So let's start with the reaction of alkanes. So alkanes are hydrocarbons, okay? They are considered as saturated hydrocarbons, okay? Because the carbon contains the maximum number of hydrogen required to attain the octet rule, okay? And they are very stable hydrocarbons, no? Compared to alkenes and alkynes. However, alkanes, which are the major component of petroleum, okay, are the usual starting materials for the synthesis of various organic compounds, okay, used in different fields, engineering, medicine, okay. So that's why whenever the price of petroleum goes up, everything goes up because they are not only used as fuel, they are also used to synthesize polymers, no? They are used to synthesize alcohols, carboxylic acids, which are very important, no, on our day-to-day activity. Okay. However, the bond in alkane is very stable. It's a sigma bond. Okay. So in order for alkane to become reactive, we have to introduce other atoms so that the bond will become polar. Okay. And one of the atoms that is usually introduced to alkane are the halogens. Why the halogens? Because halides are the conjugate bases of strong acids. So therefore, once they are attached to carbon, they can easily be replaced by other atoms like hydroxide to generate alcohol, amines, amino to generate amines. We cannot replace hydrogen with hydroxyl group to synthesize alcohol directly because OH is a very strong base. So it cannot easily be replaced. Okay? So the usual reaction of alkane, no, is combustion. So you react this with oxygen, like for example, methane to form carbon dioxide and water and heat. So that is a complete combustion. No? It will depend on the combustion chamber. No? For old cars, usually you have partial combustion, and that is very dangerous because methane will be partially oxidize to carbon monoxide and carbon. So these are, carbon monoxide is a very toxic gas because it can displace the oxygen during respiration. And carbon particulates, okay, can generate smog, no? Combination of smoke and fog, which is a very dangerous pollutant plumes, okay? The other important reaction of alkane is substitution reaction with halogens, okay? And this is usually done at a very high temperature or in the presence of UV light, because UV light can initiate a homolytic breaking of the bond to generate radicals. So the reaction of alkane, therefore, is generally classified as free radical substitution reaction. So it's a substitution reaction of hydrogen with halogen, generating a radical intermediate. Okay? So to illustrate a general reaction, like for example, you have methane, the simplest alkane. You react this with halogens represented by X2. So that could stand for chlorine, bromine, iodine, or fluorine. No? So in the presence of UV light, this is the symbol H mu. Okay? Or you can also write UV. Or very high temperature, no? Like 1000 degrees Celsius. That is enough to break the sigma bond of CH and the sigma bond of X2 to generate what you call monohalogenated compound, and the byproduct is, of course, hydrogen halide. So for example, you have CH4 plus chlorine. In the presence of UV light, you will have methyl chloride, okay, plus hydrochloric acid, the byproduct, okay? And if you notice, okay, your products still have replaceable hydrogen. So this can still react with another chlorine to form dihalogenated product. This can still react with another chlorine to form trihalogenated product. And finally, tetrahalogenated product. So you have multiple products, no? So that's why the free radical substitution reaction is not a very attractive type of reaction because of so many byproducts, but we cannot avoid that. Okay, this is the only way to introduce halogens, okay, from alkane. So, but then we can manipulate the reaction condition so that one of the products will be the major products or major product. For example, if you want methyl chloride to be the major product, then you make one of the reactants the limiting reagent, and that would be the fluorine. Okay? Methane will be in excess. However, if you want carbon tetrachloride to be the major product, then you make the methane as the limiting reagent, and put a lot of excess chlorine. So there is a way of controlling the reaction. Okay. So what is the mechanism for free radical substitution reaction? Because what is presented here is the overall, no? It's same mechanism, it's the step-by-step process. No? So the first step of the reaction, okay, it actually involves 3 stages. The first step, okay, or the first stage is what you call initiation stage, okay? And this stage involves the homolytic breaking of the halogen in the presence of UV light. So it will generate fluorine radicals, okay? And radicals are very reactive species. So it has to look for 1 electron to become stable. So it will get that electron from the CH bond. So your methane will also break homolytically, producing methyl radical, okay? And that hydrogen radical will interact with the chlorine to form the first byproduct, hydrochloric acid. The reaction will not stop because methyl radical is formed. So the methyl radical again will find another 1 electron to become stable. And it has to get that 1 electron, okay, from chlorine that is not broken yet into radicals. So those chlorine atoms that are not broken yet into radicals will interact with methyl to form the major product, methyl chloride and chlorine radical. So a radical is formed again, okay? So the reaction will repeat. This one will repeat if there is still methane. And this one will repeat if there is still chlorine. So you call this the propagation stage. So if the methane is completely consumed, the chlorine is completely consumed, what will be left in the system would be the radicals. A chlorine radical can collide with a chlorine radical, then it will stop, okay? A methyl radical can collide with a methyl radical. So there will be a small amount of ethane produced because of that collision. The third possible collision would be the methyl radical colliding with chlorine radical. So an additional methyl chloride will be formed. So you don't have radicals anymore. So that's why it will stop. You call that the termination stage. So you have the initiation, propagation, and termination. So if you want to get the overall reaction plus, all you have to do is add the propagation step. You notice when you add the propagation step, the radicals will be canceled out. Chlorine radical, this is part of the reactant. This is part of the product. Methyl radical, part of the product. Methyl radical, part of the reactant. So the overall reaction would be methane plus chlorine, producing methyl chloride and hydrochloric acid. Okay. Now, since the reaction has an intermediate, okay, then we expect, no? If we draw the energy diagram, no, at the propagation stage, we expect a profile that will look like this. Okay? You have the reactants, you have the product, and you have the intermediate here, which is a radical. And this is the rate determining step, the transition state. So for free radical substitution reaction, okay, we can predict the kinetics, how fast the reaction will happen, if that activation energy can be lowered. Okay. And that activation energy can be lowered, no? By adding a catalyst. That's one, no? But take note that the rate of reaction is also affected by the nature of the reactants. Some reactants have very low activation energies, so that's why the reaction is faster. So here, the rate of the reaction can be affected by the structure of the alkane. Here, I'm using the simplest alkane, but you can have linear and branch later on, right? And there are a lot of hydrogens. Which hydrogen will be removed by the chlorine radical, for example? Now it will depend on the stability of the intermediate. The more stable the intermediate class, the lower the energy. So this will lower. And it will also lower the rate determining step. So that's why the rate will be faster if the intermediate is very stable. And there are different types of intermediates that can be generated during reaction of alkane. Okay. So what are these? Okay. Of course, you have the methyl radical, this one. But this radical is the most unstable. This is followed by an ethyl radical, okay, which is classified as primary radical. This is followed by isopropyl radical, which is classified as secondary radical. This is followed by tertiary radical, which is classified as tertiary. But apart from this radical, there are two important radicals which are also classified as primary, but they are the most stable one. One is you have the allyl radical generated from propene, and you have benzyl radical generated from toluene. Okay? So the more stable, the lower the activation energy. Now, how can you explain the stability of this relative stability? Well, you can use CH hyperconjugation to do that. Okay? The hydrogen, the neighboring CH3 can stabilize the radical by donating 1 electron to the radical, because that radical needs only 1 electron. So what happens here is that the radical from the carbon is transferred to the hydrogen. So if the radical is spread, not localized, then it will become stable. And why tertiary? Okay, is more stable than secondary, primary, and methyl? Because it has 9 hydrogen, 9 CH that can spread the radical intermediate at the carbon. So the more delocalized, the more stable. Now, how about allyl and benzyl? What is so special about these two? Well, if you notice, they are not stabilized by CH hyperconjugation. They're stabilized by resonance. There is a pi electron there. In fact, the benzyl is expected to be more stable than allyl because of so many resonance structure. There is pi electron delocalization. That's why even if the carbon is only primary, their stabilities are not comparable to ethyl. They are the most stable. Okay? So, from this, we can predict now, okay, what are the major products of the reactions if more than one halogenation can happen. Take, for example, propane. If you subject this to chlorination reaction in the presence of UV, there are a lot of products, right? Because as what I've said, you can have mono, di, tri, tetra, etc. But we're going to pick up only, okay? We'll focus on monohalogenated products, okay? And dihalogenated. And you can actually predict loss, no? If you know, especially for monohalogenation reaction, you can predict how many monohalogenated products if you know how to identify the type of hydrogen, whether it is primary, secondary, or tertiary, and the symmetry. For example here, if we classify the hydrogen here, this is primary hydrogen, secondary hydrogen, and primary hydrogen, because they are attached to a primary carbon. A primary carbon is a carbon that is attached to one neighboring carbon. The middle is attached to two neighboring carbons, so that's why it's secondary. And for each type of hydrogen, it will generate one monohalogenated product. Now, since there is only one secondary, for sure, this is one of the products, 2-chloropropane. Now, for primary, there are two sites. But if you notice, if you put a mirror at the middle, the two methyl groups are symmetrical. So this will only produce one monohalogenated. No? Either you place the halogen on the first carbon or you place the halogen on the last. They are just the same. Now, to have an assurance whether they are the same, you have to give the IUPAC name. No? The problem, if you don't know how to give the IUPAC name, that's the biggest problem. So here for monohalogenation, we have two products. How about if propane will undergo dihalogenated or will produce dihalogenated products? How many possible dihalogenated products? If propane will undergo di-substitution reaction, well, you can have, to start with, you can have 1,1-dichloro, 1,2-dichloro, 1,3-dichloro, 2,2-dichloro. Okay? So you will end up with 4, no? 1,1-dichloro, 1,2-dichloro, 1,3-dichloro, and 2,2-dichloro. You see? You'll have 4 possible products for di-substitution. So we'll focus on the mono-substitution reaction this time. So you have 2 chloropropane and 1 chloropropane. Which one is the major product? Now we have to apply now the stability of the radical. Okay. Where the halogen is attached, that's where the radical is. Here, that's the radical because chlorine is a radical. So therefore, this product is coming from secondary radical, while this product is coming from primary radical. And since secondary radical is more stable than primary, then we expect this to be the major product. Okay? And this has been proven based on the bond dissociation energy. We discussed this, okay, at the start. Bond energy is the energy needed to break the bond. No? Now, if the bond is weak or weaker, then less energy is needed. Okay? So, the secondary, the 2-chloropropane is produced by breaking the bond here, the CH here. While the 1-chloropropane is produced by breaking the bond here. Which bond has a weaker bond? Of course, this one. This has a lower. If we compare the bond energy of this and the bond energy of this, then this one will have a lower bond energy. Why? Because it will form a stable radical. So that's why that bond will easily break compared to the primary. Primary will have a greater bond energy. So the more stable the radical class, the lower the bond energy. Okay? Similarly, the other halogens, okay, chlorine, bromine, fluorine, and iodine will also produce, no? However, in halogenation reaction, usually the chlorine and the bromine are used because the reaction of fluorine is highly exothermic. Okay, so very dangerous. On the other hand, the reaction with iodine is endothermic, no? And you know, if it is, if the product is thermodynamically unstable, meaning the reaction has a free energy that is positive. You learned this in your Gen Chem, no? If delta G or free energy is negative, it's spontaneous. Okay? But if it is positive, no? Its tendency to go to the product is not easy, no? So that's why in the reaction with iodine, the reaction is highly endothermic. So that's why it is not also used, no? So we have two halogens that are commonly used, chlorine and bromine, no? However, in terms of the reactivity, chlorine is more reactive than bromine, no? So because of this relative reactivity, your bromine, your chlorine is not very selective, while bromine is very selective. What do you mean by that? The chlorine can easily pull the hydrogen either from primary, secondary, or tertiary. But the bromine has to look for the weakest CH bond. And that is the one that will be broken first by bromine. But by chlorine, it is less selective, no? Because it is more reactive. Okay? And this difference in reactivity is reflected by their percentage yield. Okay. There is a very large variation, okay, in the percentages of the product. So, for example, here in chlorination reaction, the 2-chloropropane would still be the major product, but the yield of that is not very far from 1-chloropropane because of the less selectivity. But for bromination reaction class, there will be a large difference in terms of the percentage yield. Okay? Now, to compute that theoretically, we have to look at the reactivity of the reactant, okay? And meaning the reactivity of the CH, okay? And the probability of collision. So we have two factors to consider in order to compare the percentage yields, no? Theoretically and experimentally, okay? So in terms of the first, okay, factor, the reactivity of chlorine, no? Radical in removing the hydrogen radical from the CH, okay, will have this relative reactivity, no? From tertiary CH, secondary CH, and primary CH, okay? Tertiary, which is the weakest and the most reactive, is given a value of 5 relative to the primary, which is given a value of 1. And the secondary is 3.8. So it means to say it is 3.8 times the primary, and tertiary is 5 times the primary. That is the reactivity of chlorine in removing the hydrogen from the CH. How about bromine? The reactivity of bromine, no, radical to remove the CH, okay, for tertiary CH, bromine is 1,600 times, while for secondary CH, it's 82 times the primary CH. So you see the large difference, okay? Now we are done with reactivity. How about probability? Probability class is where the radical will collide. Of course, it has to look for the hydrogen. So for example here, we have ethane, okay? This is primary. So the probability, there is no secondary and tertiary, right? So the probability for the collision of chlorine radicals to the primary would be 6 times because there are 6 primary. Same thing with bromine. But if you have different types of hydrogen now, just like our example, we have primary here, secondary here, primary here, okay? The probability that the chlorine radical will collide with primary hydrogen will be 6 times because there are 6 primary. while the probability for the chlorine to collide with the secondary hydrogen will only be 2 times. Okay. So in other words, in terms of collision, most likely the chlorine can hit the primary hydrogen. Kasi 6 yan. While the secondary is only twice, 2 times lang. So lamang yung primary in terms of probability for collision. Pero pag reactivity naman, lamang naman yung secondary kasi 3.8. So you have to combine these 2 factors. So going back to our example here, to compute for the percentage yield of 2-chloropropane, you multiply the probability, which is 2, times the reactivity of the secondary, which is 3.8. So that is 7.6. Now for the primary, you multiply the probability, which is 6, times the reactivity, which is 1. So that is 6. So a total of 13.6. So therefore, to get the percentage yield of secondary, you divide this by the total, 13.6 times 100. And this one, okay, 6 over 13.6 times 100. Okay. And if you're going to use the calculator, 7.6 divided by 13.6 times 100, that is approximately 56%. This is 56%. And therefore, the primary would be 44%. You see? They are very close to each other because chlorine is less selective, although the secondary is still the major product. Now let's look at the bromination reaction. So in bromination reaction, these are the 2 products. You have CH3, CHBr, and CH3. Well, the other one is you have CH3, CH2, CH2Br. So again, we compute. You have the probability is 2 hydrogen times reactivity, which is 82 this time. So that is 164. While the primary is probability is 6 times 1. So a total of 170. So therefore, the percentage yield of this would be 164 over 170. That is almost 100% already. While this one would be 6 over 170 times 100. Okay. So if you're going to compute that, that is 164 divided by 170 times 100. That is 96%. Okay. So approximately this is 96%. While this one is 4%. Okay. So if you do halogenation, you better use bromine, no? Because you will have less of the primary. That is if your target is secondary. No? But if your target is primary, then bromination is useless because you will only get 4%. Okay, so that's how you determine. Now here we only have 2 types, no? So that's why we have 2 types of products. But in some structures, there are a lot of monohalogenated products. And you can also compute the percentages. No? Like for example, if you have this alkane, no? Or you have this alkane, no? Or you have this alkane. There. Or you have this alkane. Okay. Or you have this alkane. Okay. So let's see if you get the point. In the example number 1, you're going to identify how many monohalogenated products. Okay? So in number 1, there is only one monohalogenated products because replacement of the hydrogen here, or here, or here, or here, or here, or here, will produce only one chlorocyclohexane, bromocyclohexane. See? So there is only one monohalogenated product because all the hydrogens are secondary. But in our second example, this is methyl here. So this is primary, 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 primary. And there is still one hydrogen here. So that is tertiary. There is also one hydrogen here. So this is also tertiary. So from the type of hydrogen, we already are ensured of two monohalogenated products. Replacement of the hydrogen at the primary will give one. Replacement of the hydrogen at the tertiary will give one. Now, there can be more if all the primaries are not symmetrical and all the tertiary are not symmetrical. But if you notice here, all the primary are symmetrical. So therefore, replacement of any of that will give only one monohalogenated product. If you don't believe, then replace it and give the IUPAC name. Replace the other one and give the IUPAC name again. And you will end up with the same IUPAC names. Okay? The tertiary is also symmetrical, obviously. So that's why you only have two monohalogenated products. How about our third example? Okay. Our third example has a primary here, primary here. There is still one hydrogen here. So this is tertiary. This is secondary. This is primary. So for the type of hydrogen, we can already generate three. Next question. Are the three primary symmetrical? Not all. Okay. Only these two are symmetrical. So replacement of the halogen above or below are just the same. But this one is different. So you will end up with 4 primary or 4 monohalogenated products here. Okay. How about problem number 5? This is primary. This is tertiary. This is secondary, 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 tertiary, and primary. Okay. And you notice for the type of hydrogen, you already have 3. You are ensured of 3. Is there an additional one? Okay. No. The primary here above is symmetrical to the primary below. Okay. The tertiary and the tertiary are also symmetrical. How about the secondary? All the secondary are also symmetrical. So that will only generate 3. How about the next one? Toluene. This is primary, okay? But that is the only alkane. The rest are not alkane. So there will only be one, okay? How about the next one? How about the next one? You have primary here, you have tertiary here, you have secondary here, secondary, secondary. That's an alkene already, so do not include that. So for the type, you already have 3. Now, are the secondary symmetrical? Are they all symmetrical? No. Okay. You notice the secondary below is adjacent to double bond. The secondary above is adjacent to tertiary. They're not the same. The secondary at the middle is also different, no? In terms of its neighboring group. So these 3 will generate 3. So you will end up with 5 monohalogenated products. Okay? So going back to number 2, if I ask you to compute the percentage yield, okay? Let us say halogenation reaction and bromination reaction, okay? So for monohalogenated products, there will be, in terms of reactivity, there will be 12 hydrogen times 1, okay? And for tertiary, they are symmetrical. So there are 2 hydrogen there, total of 2. So 2 times 5, because that is the reactivity. So this will be 12. This will be 10. So you have a total of 22. So therefore, for the primary monohalogenated product, it will be 12 divided by 22 times 100. While for the tertiary monohalogenated product, it will be 10 divided by 22 times 100. Those are the percentage yields. Now, if you do the bromination reaction, this will be 12 times 1 again, will be 12. But for the tertiary, it will be 2 times 1,600. So that is 3,200. So for the primary will be 12. You add this will be 3,212. So this will be 12 over 3,212 times 100. While this one would be 3,200 divided by 3,212 times 100. That would be the percentage yield for bromination reaction. Okay, there. So basically, we're done with the free radical substitution reactions, no? But there is still one important point here, no? Sometimes in the reaction, alkane is in combination of alkene or in combination of aromatic, no, which I just presented a while ago. So here, if you subject this to a chlorination reaction in the presence of UV, of course, radical will be formed. So it will attack the alkane part, no? Generating allyl chloride, for example, and the byproduct HCl. However, in our next topic, reaction of alkene, okay, the halogen can also be added to the double bond. So there is a side reaction that can happen, which is electrophilic addition reaction. Okay, the first one is free radical substitution reaction. And this happens because you add the 2 reactants. So obviously, there is no control of the reaction. The chlorine will not break homolytically right away, diba? That's what I said a while ago in the mechanism. Not all the chlorine will break right away into radicals. So those chlorine that are not broken into radicals will undergo addition. So that's why you have the byproduct. So the only way, okay, to control the reaction is to minimize the concentration of chlorine. No? So in bromination reaction class, no, the bromine is produced in C2, no? Meaning it is generated during chemical reaction so that the amount of bromine will be minimal rather than you add that, no? Say you use a dropper, you add it drop by drop. Okay? So there is a way of producing the bromine during the chemical reaction, and this bromine is produced in minimal amount. So every time it is released, it is used up again immediately by the alkane. Okay? So this reagent that is used is what you call NBS or N-bromosuccinimide. So this is the structure of N-bromosuccinimide class. Succinimide is 4 carbon, okay? And it's an amide. This is the structure of amide, right? You have diamide. And you have a bromine here. There. That is your NBS, okay? So, in the presence of UV light, this will break homolytically, producing the bromine radical, okay? So that bromine radical, for example, if you have propene here, since the bromine is produced in small amount, it will immediately react with this, breaking that. So generating the radical without affecting the double bond. So you have allyl radical and HBr. There. So this allyl radical will react with bromine. And this one will break homolytically to form the final product. There. Plus the bromine radical. So if there is still propane, the second reaction will occur again. So this is the propagation stage, remember? Okay. So how is the bromine produced? Okay, here. When this one breaks, okay, of course, you have the N-bromo that is converted to radical. Okay. So what happens here is that this HBr will react with that. Okay. So when it reacts with that, of course, it needs only the hydrogen. So you will have the product here. And H. Sorry. Ayan. So this is now H. There, okay? So the bromine here will react with that bromine there, okay, to produce the Br2, okay? So the Br2 is produced in small amount, and that is the one that is used here, okay? So if you use NBS in the presence of UV light, then this will not be produced, okay? But if there is no NBS, you will produce the two products, okay? So that is selective bromination, no? In case there is alkene, no? That can be generated from the, if the reactant has a double bond, so you have to be very careful which reagent are you going to use, no? Are you going to use NBS? Then if you use NBS, then only the alkane part okay, that is adjacent to the double bond. No? Now, like for example, if you have this one, there, no? So if you place NBS in the presence of UV, then where is the allylic? This one here, or this one. Yan yung CH. And they're symmetrical, so we'll produce only one product. Either you place the bromine here, or you place the bromine on the other side. They're just the same. Now, what will happen if it's not symmetrical class? No, like for example, if you have, let us say, you have a double bond here, okay, and then you have like that, no, and that one is 1-butene. Okay, that is 1-butene. So supposing you place NBS, how many possible products? Okay, now, when you place the NBS, what will happen to this one? Of course, the allylic radical will be removed, which is this one here. So nandyan yung radical. And look at that. It's adjacent to the double bond. So there is resonance. There is resonance class. This one will break. Yan yung sinabi natin kanina, bakit mas stable yung allyl radical. So you will have a double bond dito. Nasaan na yung radical? Nandito na. So dalawa nga ngayon ng radical mo. Secondary and primary. So this one will react with bromine, producing the allylic bromide. Ganyan. This one will also react with bromine, producing this product. There. So you have two products. But which one is the major product? Of course, this one, because it is a secondary allylic. This is a primary allylic. Okay, so there. So that covers, no? We have discussed the reactivity of chlorine and bromine, reactivity of the alkane, no? The more stable the intermediate, the faster the formation, and that would be the major product. We also computed the theoretical yield by using reactivity and selectivity, and the application of NBS, no, for compounds containing alkene part, no, to make it more selective. Now, in terms of applications, now, why we study radicals? Okay, radicals are very dangerous, no, because they are electron-seeking particle class. So, if you have ingested radicals, no, hydroxyl radical, which is the most common radical in the environment, that will attack your cell and destroy the cell membrane. There will be a chain reaction that will happen, right? So that's why we try to take radical scavengers, no? And we call them antioxidants, no? Because they are capable of absorbing radicals. What is so special about these antioxidants? Why others cannot act as antioxidants? Okay. One of the most common antioxidants that you know is vitamin C and vitamin E. Okay? Now, if you look at their structure class, okay, like for example, vitamin C. Vitamin C has this structure. You have an OH here. You have an OH here. You have a double bond here. You have oxygen here. And you have the alcohol here. Okay? This is the structure of vitamin C. Okay? Now, why this one can absorb radicals? No, like for example, hydroxyl radical. Okay? Because you notice if the OH here in vitamin C will break homolytically, this radical, okay, will combine with the hydrogen radical to form water, and you're safe. But then the vitamin C will become radical also. Okay? The vitamin C will become radical. Okay? But why this radical is no longer reactive? Because of resonance class. There. Okay? So if you have, for example, this compound, cyclohexanol, okay, can this be used as radical scavenger? No. Because if you remove the hydrogen as radical, this oxygen cannot delocalize by resonance. So that is still very reactive. So it will take the hydrogen back. So your hydroxyl will not be converted to water. Okay? The same thing with vitamin E. The vitamin E class has the phenolic group. Okay? It has an OH here. Okay? It has a methyl group there, a methyl group, a methyl group. Okay? And you have the oxygen here. So where is the radical scavenger site? Here at the phenol. Okay? Because if this hydrogen is removed, okay, to remove the hydroxyl radical, again, that oxygen radical can delocalize. So that's why vitamin E is a radical scavenger. Okay, so there. So there are reagents in the lab that are very dangerous, no? Because they can be they can react with oxygen. No? Oxygen, by the way, class, you learn in your general chemistry that this is a diradical. Okay? Oxygen is a diradical. So there is a tendency, for example, ether. No? You have a hydrogen here. And since oxygen is a diradical, it is capable of removing the hydrogen as a radical, forming peroxide, like that. So this one, okay, will become radical because the hydrogen is picked up by your oxygen from the atmosphere. So what will happen to this one? Okay, this one becomes a radical, and you have, okay, you have a peroxide radical. So this one will combine with this. So you will end up with a peroxide like that. And you know, peroxide are very unstable because of the two oxygen there. So this will explode in the lab. That's why reagents are usually placed in ambered bottle, not in clear, because of the initiation of UV light coming from the sun. No? It will initiate homolytic breaking. Okay. The same thing, the same mechanism is observed in oil and fat, which we use at home. No, oil has double bonds. No, oil has double bond in its structure. You call that unsaturated fatty acids. So just like the ether there, okay, and just like the NBS, the attack of the hydrogen, the attack of the radical will be in this hydrogen because this is allylic, just like NBS. So you will have the peroxide develop here because the attack of the oxygen, which is a diradical, will be here. So this will result to breaking down of the oil, no? Generating aldehydes and ketones, no? And it makes the oil pungent, no? So that's why you say it's rancid. Because when you use the oil for cooking, that will enhance the homolytic breaking because cooking will raise the temperature to about 600 to 800 degrees Celsius. So that's why we have to use oil one or twice, no? Do not use that several times, no? Because once it produces aldehyde, like formaldehyde, inimbalsamo mo yung sarili mo, no? Okay, because aldehydes are carcinogenic, okay? So these are important aspects of radicalic reactions class, okay? So now we'll move on to reaction of alkenes and alkynes. And you call that electrophilic addition reaction. Kaya pa makinig? Kaya pa ba? Kung hindi, I'll stop na. Kaya pa? Kaya pa makinig? Yes? Dali, sagot. Yes, okay. So now let's go to electrophilic addition reaction. Okay. This is the reaction mechanism exhibited by alkenes and alkynes. No? So that attacking reagent here is an electrophile. No? So electrophile are electron deficient particle like H+. Okay. Now, this reaction is very unique because it will produce also this electrophile Cl+ and Br+. No? We know that chlorine and bromine are usually negatively charged. No? But we can manipulate the reaction condition so that the chlorine will become positively charged or the bromine will become positively charged. Okay? So, alkenes and alkynes have functional groups unlike alkane. So that's the functional group, the double bond. Okay. So when you add an electrophile, okay, the electron that will react with that would be the pi electron because it is a weaker bond than the sigma bond. Okay. So that electron will interact with the electrophile, generating an intermediate. And an intermediate this time class is carbonium ion intermediate. There. Okay. So we have an intermediate again, just like the radical. So to complete the reaction, of course, you have to add the nucleophile at the end. But that is not the rate determining step already. The rate determining step will happen before the formation of the intermediate. So here, the reaction there will be slow because it has a higher activation energy. Okay. So if we're going to draw the energy profile for this one, then again, you will have just like a radicalic intermediate. Okay. It involves more than one step. This time you have a carbonium ion intermediate there. It's the reactant. This is the product. This is the rate determining step. Okay. So if the more stable the carbonium, the faster the rate. So just like radical, okay, we have different types of carbonium ion intermediate. We have methyl carbonium, which is the least stable, followed by primary carbonium, just like primary radical, okay, is less stable than secondary carbonium. Is less stable than tertiary. Carbonium, okay? And again, this can be explained by CH hyperconjugation. We discussed that. So that's why the tertiary is the most stable, because you have 9 hydrogen to stabilize, to spread the positive. Now, we also have the 2 special again. The allyl carbonium and the benzyl carbonium. They are also primary, but they are more stable than primary here because they are stabilized by resonance or pi electron delocalization. Okay? But experimentally, their stability, okay, this is a primary allylic, a primary benzylic. If you have primary allylic and primary benzylic class, okay, their stability will be here. So meaning they are less stable than the tertiary. They are less stable than the tertiary. But if this one becomes secondary, then it will be more stable, less. Secondary allylic, secondary benzylic will be more stable. What do you mean by secondary allylic? Like here, you have an allele, okay? And then you have another allele here. Mobra. You have another double bond here. Like that. And you have the carbonium. Secondary na yan. So pag secondary allylic, mas stable na yan, no? Kaysa tertiary. Pero kung mga primary lang, they are less stable than the tertiary. Okay? There. So what are the different types, no? So take note of the stability of the carbonium ion, no? The more stable, the faster the rate. No? So therefore, if you have, if you talk about a double bond, no? Like that. If you attach an electron withdrawing group here, class, no? And you have a double bond, you attach an electron or you attach an electron donating. Okay. And take note that the attacking reagent is an electrophile. Okay. And electrophiles are electron seeking. So the higher the electron density, the more reactive is the electrophile. So if you have an electron donating here, it will increase the electron density of the double bond, the pi. So therefore, this one becomes more reactive than if the other one that has electron withdrawing group. Okay. So that's why if you have, for example, ethene and you have propene, which one is more reactive to electrophilic addition? Okay, if this one will undergo electrophilic addition reaction. Okay, now here we consider a methyl group as electron donating group. So therefore the ethene will be less reactive than propene to electrophilic addition because of this electron donating group that will increase the electron density. And take note also that the intermediate is a carbonium ion. Okay. And in order to stabilize a carbonium ion, there should be an electron donating group. Electron donating will neutralize, meaning stabilize a positive. Whereas if you have an electron withdrawing, it will destabilize or increase the positive. So that's why electron donating okay, is more reactive, no? Because it will make the carbonium ion more stable. That's why propene here is more reactive to electrophilic addition than ethene. So the more electron donating, the faster the rate of the reaction. Okay. So what are the typical electrophilic addition reaction, class? One is called the hydrogenation reaction. So in hydrogenation reaction, okay, the reagent is hydrogen, okay, added with a heterogeneous catalyst like platinum, nickel, or palladium, okay. Another one is you have hydrohalogenation reaction. So addition of hydrogen halide, no? Halogenation reaction, okay? So addition of binary acids, no? Like HCl or HBr, okay? So that is hydrohalogenation. So this is usually done in non-polar solvent like carbon tetrachloride, okay? Because your reactant is non-polar, no? And that's why it is usually placed in non-polar solvents, no? And then we also have hydration reaction. So hydration reaction would be addition of water. Now, since water is not acidic, so it will not generate a lot of electrophile H+. So this is usually added with a catalyst like sulfuric acid. That is the source of H+, okay? And then you have halohydrine reaction, okay? So in halohydrine reaction, you have the halogen, no, used, but then the solvent, okay? So teka muna. Unahin ko muna ang halogenation, no? Next is you have halogenation reaction, no? So in halogenation, you add chlorine or bromine, no? In the presence of carbon tetrachloride, okay? Here, you can also use dichloromethane as the solvent, no? Dito pala class, no need, no? Wala na, no? Kasi HCl is a gas. So it is directly added, so no more. Dito pala sa halogenation yun, no? And then you have halohydrine reaction. So in halohydrine, okay, you can use bromine or chlorine, but the solvent that is used is water, not carbon tetrachloride. So in other words, there is a shifting, shifting in the chemical reaction mechanism. So we'll look at that. And the last one is reaction of HBr or HCl in the presence of contaminant, no? In the presence of contaminant. And this contaminant is hydrogen peroxide. So let's look at that, no? How that one affects the reaction. So these are the typical electrophilic addition reaction of alkene, no? So let's start with hydrogenation reaction. So in hydrogenation reaction, okay, you have the hydrogen and the catalyst. Okay. So if you have, for example, propene. Propene is a gas. Okay. Hydrogen is also a gas. So in order for these two to react, okay, they are added with a powdered platinum, okay, porous platinum, which is capable of absorbing the two reactants so that they will react. So you call this heterogeneous catalysis, no? And you will end up with alkane as the product there. Okay. So you can also use nickel, no? Or palladium, no? To do the hydrogenation process, no? And this reaction is very important when it comes to industrial application class, because we use oil as a very important food product, no? And it's a liquid. So it is converted into some commercial food product, like for example, margarines, no? Butter and cheese, no? So when the pi bond, okay, disappears, your oil will become solid, no? It will become fat, no? The difference between oil and fat is due to the presence of the double bond in the carboxylic acid, no? Part of oil, no? And fat, because oil and fat are esters class. And you know, ester is formed from the reaction of alcohol and carboxylic acid. A very long chain carboxylic acid is called fatty acid, no? So we have saturated and unsaturated fatty acid. So if the double bond is hydrogenated, okay, then it will become solid. If it is partially hydrogenated, then you have now the margarines, yung mga semi-solid product. Okay? So that's why this reaction is very important. Okay? Now, the second one is hydrohalogenation reaction. So reaction of HCl, no? Or HBr. So going back to propene as our example again, no? The reaction is described as reduced selective, no? Now, what do you mean by reduced selectivity class, no? So for example here, if you react this with HBr, okay, there are two possibilities. One would be the electrophile will be here and the nucleophile will be here, no? Or the electrophile will be here and the nucleophile will be here, okay? But the major product, okay, is formed when the electrophile is here, okay, and the nucleophile is here, okay? So we therefore come up with a reduced selective product because one of the orientation is chosen, no? So you have the Br here, and you have the CH3 here. You call this addition Markovnikov addition, okay? Now, according to this German scientist, that in hydrohalogenation reaction, the electrophile will go to the carbon containing more hydrogen. So you notice here you have 2 hydrogen, and here you have 1 hydrogen. So we can apply Markovnikov's rule. Okay? Place the hydrogen, the electrophile at the carbon with more hydrogen. Now, what is the logic for that one? Of course, if you look at the mechanism, no, there is a logic. Okay, why the hydrogen should be there. Now, if you recall in our mechanism, okay, the electrophile will attack first. So, if the electrophile will attack, it will generate the stable carbonium, okay? And if the electrophile will be attached at the terminal carbon class, what kind of carbonium will be formed? Secondary carbonium, no? And secondary is more stable. if the hydrogen, if the electrophile will attack here, class, the carbonium will be here, which is primary only. Okay? Whereas if the electrophile will attack at the terminal, you will have a secondary carbonium, which is more stable. Okay? So there is a logic of Markovnikov's rule. Okay? So when this secondary carbonium is formed, now the bromide, the nucleophile, will complete. That's why you have that resulting product. Okay? Now what will happen if the two hydrogens are the same? Okay? So we cannot apply Markovnikov. Like for example here, if you have this kind of alkene, no? Like that, okay? If you have, say, this alkene, so let's see. You cannot easily here in the first one, although we cannot apply Markovnikov's rule because you have the same number of hydrogen, but they are symmetrical anyway, so no problem. No, either you place the electrophile here, the nucleophile here, or the electrophile here, the nucleophile here. No problem. You will end up with one product only, no, which is 2-bromo butane. No problem with that. Okay. Now, how about the second one? Okay. They are the same again, same hydrogen. So, if you place the H here and the Br here, you will end up with CH3, CH2, CHBr, CH2, and CH3. However, if you put the electrophile here and the Br here, the nucleophile, you will end up with CH3, CHBr, CH2, CH2, and CH3. So you have two products, 3-bromopentane and 2-bromopentane. Now, what is the major product here? That's the question now. You can trace maybe that's almost 50-50, but one would still be larger, okay? If you trace the mechanism, like if you consider the first reaction here, you will have this intermediate. If the electrophile is at the second carbon, then you will have CH2 here, and this one will become the carbonium, right? That is for the first product. While for this one, okay, the intermediate for this one would be CH3. And then you will have the H plus at the left. So you will have your CH plus here. Okay, to form that 2-bromo. You have CH2, CH2, CH3. Okay. Now, if you're going to apply the stability, what stabilizes the carbonium? Of course, the CH hyperconjugation here and the CH hyperconjugation here. Okay. And you notice that you have 4 CH. But here, in the second one, this carbonium is stabilized by 3 CH here and 2 CH here. So that is 5. So therefore, this carbonium will be more stabilized, okay, compared to the first. So this will be the major product. Okay, so you see, you're still able to account even if we don't apply the Markovnikov, no, because it's not possible. But we can trace the stability of the carbonium ion intermediate, okay, or that. So that is hydrohalogenation and hydrobromination reaction. Okay, now, the presence of contaminant, if you recall, there is one reaction there, okay? Presence of hydrogen peroxide. Here, there is no hydrogen peroxide. What will happen if you have this reaction class? Okay, you have, let's go to a simple alkene, propene. Okay, you react this with bromine, no? This will form, you react this with HBr. So we can apply Markovnikov's rule here. So we have Br here and CH3 as the major product. Now, supposing there is a contaminant. You have HBr and then you have hydrogen peroxide. The product that will be formed, class, is against the Markovnikov's rule. And this is the product now. You anti-Markovnikov product. Okay? Why this is anti-Markovnikov product? Because it is against the stability rule. Diba here, you have the Markovnikov rule. Markovnikov product. And we trace why, what is the basis for Markovnikov's rule is stability of carbonium ion. If the bromine is here, it means to say that's the carbonium, which is secondary. If the bromine is here, this is primary carbonium. This is secondary carbonium. Why in the presence of peroxide, the primary becomes the major product. And it will violate the stability of carbonium ion. So what does it imply, class? It implies that the mechanism of the second reaction is not carbonium because it is less likely that the primary will become the major. So this is not a carbonium ion, right? It will be another intermediate, but definitely not carbonium because it's only primary, okay? So the presence of the peroxide changes the mechanism of the reaction. And this mechanism of the reaction is radicalic, okay? So therefore, this addition now is radicalic addition, no? Free radical addition reaction. Instead of electrophilic addition, it becomes free radical addition. No? So to understand the reaction class, of course, we have to trace the mechanism. Okay. So first, the peroxide can initiate radical. That's what we said. That's what I discussed a while ago. So what happens, class, in the first reaction is that the presence of the peroxide will generate a radical, just like in free radical substitution reaction. It generates hydroxyl radical. And you know what will happen to radical, no? They are electron-seeking particle. So they will initiate the breaking of the HBr. So in the presence of the radical, class, okay, this one will break, okay, generating water and Br radical. Okay. So yung radical na yan, yan yung mag-attack doon sa propene. Okay? So yung propene mo ngayon, okay, instead na mag-undergo ng electrophilic addition, okay, pag mayroong radical, ang radical kailangan lang ng isang electron, di ba? So saan manggagaling yan? Sa pi. Putulin niya yan. Okay? So saan yung bromine kakapit? Sa right na radical or sa left na radical? Siyempre sa right. Bakit sa right? Kasi mag-generate ng secondary radical pag sa right. Pag sa left kasi kakapit yung bromine, mag-generate lang siya ng primary radical. Okay? Kaya ang kalabasan, yung bromine mo nasa dulo, wala sa gitna. Kasi nagiging radical pala ang mechanism ng reaction. Yan, naging ganyan yan siya. So, since radical pa yan, hindi pa yan yung true product, di ba? So, kung mayroon pang HBr, katulad ng free radical substitution natin kanina, pag mayroon pang HBr, maputol yung ibang HBr. No? So, itong HBr na to, maputol to, okay? Kasi kailangan lang yung carbon radical na isa. So, maputol yan. So, you will end up now with the product, CH3, CH2, CH2Br, which is your anti-Markovnikov product. Okay? And Br radical. So, uulit to. Kung mayroon pang propene, mangyari uli yan. Mangyari uli ito. So, ito yung propagation. Ito yung initiation. Okay? And you know what will happen to the termination already. Okay? Yun na kompleto niyan. No? Kung ano yung mga possible termination stages niyan. Okay? So that's why in the presence of peroxide, yan yung nagiging product. 1-bromopropane. Kasi radicalic na pala siya. Which we describe as free radical addition reaction. Okay? So there. Okay, so we have done so far hydrogenation reaction, hydrohalogenation reaction, okay? Hydrohalogenation in the presence of contaminant. Okay, now let's go to hydration reaction. So we have hydration. So as what I have said, water has a very low concentration of H+, only 1 × 10⁻⁷. So that's why it needs a catalyst, no, to generate H+, usually sulfuric acid. Okay. So just like hydrohalogenation reaction class, we can apply Markovnikov's rule if possible. No? So if you add water here in the presence of H+, again, the H+ electrophile will go to the carbon containing the greater number of hydrogen to form the stable carbonium. So therefore, we expect the product isopropyl alcohol. There. Okay? So ganyan yung reaction niya, no? So you know, we experience the supply and demand for alcohol during COVID, no? If you notice here, it's easy to synthesize, no? As long as you have the propene, you have the sulfuric acid, then you can produce the isopropyl alcohol class, no? Okay, now. So here, the same mechanism, no? The H+, okay, coming from sulfuric will attack, generating a carbonium ion, and then you have the OH of water will complete the reaction here, no? And the H+ will be recovered because it is a catalyst only, no? So you have hydration, okay? Now, the problem with carbonium ion intermediate, no? I'm going to discuss that at the end of after discussing all this, no? The problem with carbonium ion intermediate class is that it will undergo rearrangement to form a more stable carbonium ion. Okay, we'll discuss that at the end, no? And after I discuss all, no? So I'm still describing Markovnikov's rule here. So take note for hydration, we can also apply Markovnikov's rule, just like hydrohalogenation, because our electrophile is H+. Okay. Now, the last one is you have, the fifth one is halogenation reaction. Okay. So here you use bromine, no, or chlorine, and you have nonpolar solvent. So for example, here you have propene, no? You react this with bromine, okay? Then all the halogens will be added, no? There's no hydrogen, so it will be bromine. So you have adjacent bromine, you call that vicinal, no? Vicinal halides product. Yan yung na-form. Okay, now, if you talk about the mechanism of bromination reaction class, okay, how is the electrophile generated here? Because this is a neutral. Okay, now, when you have a pi bond, okay, if you recall, pi bonds are more diffused. Okay, that's why it's weaker. And you have a big atom. A big atom can easily break. The bond is weaker. So when the pi electron here attacks the bromine, this will break heterolytically. Okay? So generating the Br+. So you will end up with the bromine attached here, which is your Br+. And you have the bromide there. Okay? And this one is carbonium. See, the pi electron breaks the Br2, generating that carbonium ion. But unlike the hydrohalogenation class and the hydration reaction, you notice the mechanism above. Okay, the carbonium ion is naked, no? Meaning when the H+ attacks, okay, look at the reaction there. Okay, there, look at that. You have the plus, no? You call that naked carbonium ion. And if you have that kind of carbonium ion, it will undergo rearrangement, no? Which I have not discussed yet, no? But in bromine, there is no rearrangement that will happen, class. You know why? The carbonium is not naked like that. What happens is that since the bromine is a big atom and it has, remember, it has 3 lone pairs. This one is attracted to that. Okay, so instead of open carbonium ion, it will generate a cyclic carbonium ion class, like this. You will have CH3, you will have CH, CH2, okay, and then you have the Br that is now partially attached here, okay. So since it is partially attached, this one will become partially positive na lang. But still you have the carbonium. Okay? So it forms a cyclic intermediate. So you don't have a naked carbonium. So it will not rearrange, class. It will not rearrange. So the important point here is that the bromide that will complete the reaction cannot attack at the top because you have the bromine. So the only way for the nucleophile is to attack at the bottom. So you call that anti-addition. Okay? The hydrogenation kanina, cis addition yung class, no? Because the hydrogen are added on the same side. But here, because of the cyclic intermediate, the bromine will attack at the bottom. And there is an implication here when it comes to stereochemistry. Because if the bromine will attack on a particular side of the reaction, it will form the trans product. Like that. You see, di ba? Trans yan. Okay? But of course, you say, sir, paano yan mag-trans? Iikot naman yan. Okay, now, for single bonds like that, of course, no, there is no trans product, only the orientation, no? Because the resulting bond here, no, which I highlighted, can rotate. No? So there is no cis and trans here. But the reaction becomes significant, class, if you are using a cyclic alkene, like this, cyclohexene. You react this with bromine, okay? The only product that will be formed will be the trans, okay? Take note that disubstituted cyclohexane will exhibit geometric isomerism, cis and trans. But when you add bromine, the only product that will be formed is trans, no cis. Why? Because if you trace the mechanism of that, when you add the bromine, remember, you will have the bromine here, okay, that is partially attached to this carbon, okay? So what will happen? The nucleophile can attack at the bottom. So that's why you produce the trans. And this cannot rotate anymore. So trans lang talaga yung product na ma-form sa kanya. Okay? This reaction class is very important in the lab. You call this decolorization test. No? It is used to identify the presence of alkenes and alkynes. Because if you add bromine, bromine is reddish orange. When it is added to the double bond class, the color of bromine will disappear. So that's why it is called decolorization test. Pag ilagay mo yung bromine sa alkane, walang mangyari. Orange pa rin. Pag ilagay mo yung bromine sa aromatic, wala pa rin mangyari. Okay? So that's why, if you are given an unknown in the lab, which I think bibigyan na kayo, wala pala kayong lab, no? 33 lang pala yan. Unfortunate. Okay? So, this will be used to identify the presence, no, of alkenes and alkynes. So I think I'll continue this one na lang, class, no, in the asynchronous, no, kasi 1 o'clock na siya. So wait for this one, no, because I'm going to continue this, no, up to reactions of alkenes and alkynes and aromatics, no. The coverage for the third exam will be reactions of electrophiles. So that includes free radical substitution, electrophilic addition, and electrophilic aromatic substitution. Okay. So that's it for today, class. Okay. And stop the sharing. And bye. Bye sa inyo lahat. Bye-bye.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you po, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.